can go ahead and get started. Thank you guys so much for joining. We have five amazing panelists with us who have pursued a diverse number of paths post receiving the Goldwater Scholarship. So I'm excited to let them share their journeys with you guys today. I'm going to go ahead and start with some questions that I already have for them so you can learn more about them and use that information to maybe come up with some of your own questions. So we'll have some time for you guys to do that closer to the end of today's panel. So be thinking about those questions and you'll have a chance to ask them soon. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started with introductions. My name is Nithya. I am the webinar chair for the Goldwater Scholars Council, and I am a 2020 Goldwater, 2020, I don't know why I said that, 2023 Goldwater Scholar. And I am currently a data scientist at JP Morgan, and I got my bachelor's degree in data science from the University of Texas at Dallas. So that is how I ended up in Texas, even though I was born and raised in Michigan. All right, I will let the panelists introduce themselves now. So I'll go ahead and start with Matt, because that's who I see first on my screen.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Matt Schainbauer. I'm a oh God, I don't even remember, 2018 scholar. I graduated in 2020. I have done a few different things since I graduated. So I did it, originally I did the Goldwater in like pure math. After I graduated, I was in the quant finance world for a few years. Then I did grad school at Columbia, did a master's degree there, and now I work at an AI startup. I'll say I have plenty more to say about that, but I'll move on for now.
Thank you, Matt. Nithya, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Nitya Shri, and I was a 2019 Goldwater Scholar. Time has flown by, even though I don't want to admit it. I did my bachelor's in neuroscience at Georgia State University in Atlanta, and then I did my PhD in biochemistry in the University of Bristol in England as a Marshall Scholar, and I will be starting a postdoc next month at the Max Planck Institute in Florida, also doing some neuroscience combination work with biochemistry. So that's where I've ended up after the Goldwater.
Awesome. Thank you. Sylvia, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sylvia. I think I'm probably the oldest on the panel. I'm a 2016 Goldwater Scholar, and I graduated from Penn State in 2017 with degrees in physics and Spanish. After that, I spent a year as a Fulbright Scholar in Australia doing research. So my research was on gravitational waves, so astrophysics. I then did my PhD at MIT in the same area, graduated in 2023, and I'm now a NASA Hubble postdoctoral fellow at Northwestern. And then in the fall, I'll be starting as an assistant professor of physics at Princeton.
Awesome. And I love the background, very on brand. Okay, Artemis.
Hi, everyone. I'm Artemis, and I am currently a second year PhD student at Columbia in biomedical engineering. And I was a 2022 scholar. At the time, I was at BU, Boston University in Boston. I was doing biomedical engineering for my undergrad as well. And then I just went straight into the PhD after graduating in 2023, which is how that makes me a second year at Columbia now.
Nice, thank you. And our last panelist, Vaishnavi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vaishnavi. I went to MIT for undergrad where I got the Goldwater in 2020, and then I graduated as class of 2022, decided to go straight through to MD PhD and didn't go far. So I'm in the Harvard MIT combined MD PhD program in the third year of the program overall, but that would make me a first year grad student because the way MD PhD programs work is you do the first 2 years of med school, then your whole PhD, and then the last 2 years of med school. So it's great to be on the panel. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you so much to all of you for being here. Okay, so I'm going to get right into it so we can talk about exactly what we're here for this panel. So this question is for all of you. So what was your vision, I guess, for what you wanted to study or what your career was going to be in when you got the Goldwater Scholarship? And how closely has your actual journey followed that vision? Did your interests or your goals change along the way? So I'm going to go in the opposite order now. So we're going to start with Vaishnavi.
Okay, sorry, let me think about it for like 2 seconds.
No problem.
I think when I applied for the Goldwater, it was after a period where I grappled with whether I wanted to do a PhD only or an MD PhD, because when I was in high school, I was like really interested in medicine and research. And then in college, I got so into basic science research that it made me question the MD side of things. And I think like going through the Goldwater application process was challenging because it's so catered towards people who want to do research and kind of like wants you to de-emphasize the clinical aspects and like only do the clinical side as it benefits your research. So I feel like after writing essays like that, it kind of pushed me even more towards research. And I was still grappling with like which of those two paths to pursue after getting it. But after doing some more soul searching and like clinical shadowing, I think I reached the conclusion that I should still do both. And honestly, I'm still like for the rest of my career, I'm still wondering like how much clinic I want to have in my career because I still like really enjoy basic science research, but I'm glad I'm doing med school as well because I find a different kind of satisfaction from the patient interaction and the kind of clinical problem solving that I do. So I feel like I'm honestly not in that different of a place as I was when I was applying for the Goldwater and when I got it. I did grapple with some other questions on like what to do right after college that I can talk about in future questions, as I'm sure it'll come up.
That's awesome. And I'm so brave of you to make an already long journey. I feel like even longer. Like, how much longer does getting your PhD make that?
Yeah, so med school only is 4 years to get the MD, and then of course like residency fellowship. PhDs, I feel like it varies by the field, but the average is 6 years. MD PhD programs are typically 8 years, but it all depends on the length of your PhD, so they can be like 9 or 10 years too, depending on how things go.
That is amazing. That's like a decade. That's a decade. Okay, Artemis.
Yeah, so when I got the Goldwater, I think I knew I wanted to do a PhD since maybe the start of undergrad. I did a little bit of research as a high school student, and I was very lucky to be in a really, really welcoming lab with a great mentor. So I think I kind of fell in love with research pretty early on, which was a very big privilege because it can just be such a hit or miss. I think when starting and really depend on the lab environment and the mentor that you have. But I was pretty fortunate that when I entered college, I kind of knew that that was my goal. And so I always knew that I wanted to be a PhD. I would say the biggest difference between when I got the Goldwater and now is that when I was applying for the Goldwater, I think I was pretty set on being a professor and an academic. And although I'm very happy with my decision to do a PhD, that has definitely changed. After I did the Goldwater, I did um, a summer and part of a year um, working in pharma in Boston. So I worked at Merck for a few months, and I enjoyed that. I got a lot of pharma and biotech connections and established a new network of mentors. And I kind of realized that I think that's the path I want to take. So what didn't change is that I wanted to do a PhD kind of throughout college, but my goals for after the PhD have changed a little bit.
Very cool. It's crazy how like very like specific experiences can completely change your path.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And it's genuinely crazy to think about how something being slightly different, like working with a slightly different team on a slightly different project can change your whole trajectory. I kind of try not to think about it because it's a little bit scary.
Yeah, 100%. And sometimes like a very positive experience can also make you think that a career path is for you when it's not. Like I loved my physics teacher in high school, so I was like, physics is for me. And then I applied to college as physics and then started taking some physics classes, and I was like, physics is not for me. Sorry, Sylvia. I was like, this is not for me. Sylvia, do you want to share?
Yeah, so for me, when I started college, I had no idea what I wanted to study. I think the entire rest of my life, I was planning on being a professional violinist. And then, kind of at the end of high school, I decided I was not going to be a professional musician. And then I didn't know, like, I kind of lost my whole identity and sense of self at that point. So I started at Penn State super undecided. I liked physics in high school. And yeah, it was really just like one mentor who was like, really influential, and I kind of ended up doing physics. By the time that I applied for Goldwater, the path as a physicist was kind of more clear. And so like honestly, in those like first 2 years of college, going from not even having a concept of like a professional physicist as a potential career path to being like, yeah, this is what I can see myself doing over the rest of my life is pretty crazy. And I will say that since then, I've been extremely fortunate to basically get my dream job at every single next step. So I was not expecting that. And, every time I would apply for something, I was just kind of like shooting my shot. And so I feel really, really lucky. But you always kind of have those contingency plans in place. And I will say that like astrophysics, it's not like biochemistry, right? If you're not doing astrophysics as an academic, you're not doing astrophysics. So my colleagues, friends from grad school who have left the field, they go to do quant finance or to work for an AI startup or these kinds of jobs where you're actually not spending your whole day thinking about stars. And so if that's important to you, then the academic path is really the only way to pursue it. But if you enjoy like the skills-based aspects of what we do, like data science and statistics and machine learning and all that, there are loads of other ways that you can do that. It's just that the data that you're analyzing are slightly different.
That's awesome. And that is a fantastic transition because Nithya's in biochemistry. So she's going to be talking about that next.
Yeah, so when I was applying for the Goldwater, I think I had my heart pretty much set that I wanted to become a professor. And that's sort of where I'm going now. So I just completed my PhD and I'm starting a postdoc next month. So that is still my plan. The only thing that's sort of changed is I've become very aware of how hard that is and how competitive it is. And so that's become a shock to reality. But one thing I did want to mention is that, yes, I've stuck to the career path that I said I wanted to do during my Goldwater application. But one thing that's definitely changed is the area of research. So I was really interested in neuroscience as an undergrad and wanted to do this neuro AI, go into computational neuroscience. And so that was what I was thinking back then. But due to some experiences in different labs, I really fell in love with wet lab research and the biochemistry, molecular aspect of everything, which is what I ended up doing my PhD in. And so I think that, as we've been mentioning earlier, that certain experiences can really shape where you end up with. So I guess the only thing is that I was very happy that I was open-minded in the type of work that I was doing. But yeah, I've kept so far it's really worked out well. So we'll see where I end up in the next 5 or so years.
That's awesome. And I think like being a professor is particularly hard because you have to be good at two jobs. Like you have to be good at like lecturing and teaching people, and then you also have to be good at doing research. So that's awesome. All right, Matthew.
Yeah, I will try to be brief here, but I do have quite a bit to say about this. So I pulled up the article that my undergrad published when I got the Goldwater. Oh man, and it says, where does it say? Schambauer hopes to pursue a doctorate in mathematics, conduct research in algebraic and differential topology, and teach at the university level after graduation. And that was like so not true so shortly after I heard that, or after that was published. So I have pure mathematics it's a weird field. You basically it's not only the case that like A lot of what you do is not going to see the real world. A lot of the cases, something you can prove definitively that like what you're going to be doing is not useful for the real world. And I wasn't bothered by that up until the point where I got to the middle of undergrad, and a couple things. One, I did experience some people who were like later on in my like in that career path, and they seemed like they were, extremely smart people that were having a pretty hard time, number one. And then those who were successful, a couple things about that. First of all, they had quite a bit of disdain for people who like did work that wasn't, academic and theoretical. And I found that extremely off-putting. And they also, they have to be able to sell like for grants and whatever, and like for public appeal, they have to be able to sell the work that they're doing as like good for the world. And they're like, there's a fair amount of dishonesty in this. And so this was all together like it. I found it all very off-putting. So I took the moral high ground and went into quant finance. Uh, well, I convinced myself. I explored a lot of different things after pure math, thinking that I would find ways to apply what I knew for real things. But it's almost always one of two options. One is that you're doing work that is not very mathematical, which is fine, but like I wanted to do math. I love math. Or you're doing mathematical work, and again, like you're not doing anything that anybody cares about, right? You can see topological data analysis, see quantum computing, see I don't know, most theoretical machine learning research. It's all the same, frankly. So I guess I just had to sort of remake myself, which I've done a few times already in the last few years. So I worked at a startup in quant finance. I enjoyed that quite a bit. There was the company had a mission that I appreciated, but still it was a lot of the same. I ended up going to a place called Citadel Securities, which is a pretty it's a pretty intense firm. And there was a lot that I liked about it. For the first time, the work that I was doing seemed very real, but it was, I wanted to do something that was more technical. So I actually did end up going back to grad school because there's a part of me as someone who got the Goldwater and was doing academic research for a long time. Like I still did feel really drawn to that. And I enjoyed that quite a bit. I didn't feel at the conclusion of that I wanted to do a PhD. I think like I had seen, oh yeah, that's the other thing. When you take a step outside of the academic world, like you only see one outcome, really. Like the people that you see are those who have been successful in the academic world, and they've stayed there, and like they're your role models, right? If you leave, you'll see like two other situations that are worth noting. One is people who don't have PhDs and do like extremely interesting, very technical work that you know, a PhD would not have helped them do. I know plenty of people like that, both like personally and through my work. And you'll also find people who did go the PhD route and didn't end up using what they learned in the PhD in any way. So yeah, I think like for all of you, I know like you just got this for many of you just got the big academic scholarship, and you should be very, very proud of that. But also like chances are if you are somebody who got the scholarship, you probably idolize your professors, right? And you it's worth taking some time to step out and see what other options are, frankly. Because I'm currently the startup I'm at. It's using AI to automate a lot of problems in the tech world that I think like are actually very painful, and I love it. Like I have never been happier doing this work, and whether it was research or industry work, like it's working at a startup is super super fun. So that's my conclusion. That's where I'm at right now. I'm sure within 2 years I'll have gotten completely disillusioned because that seems to be what the cadence I'm at right now. But yeah, that's my story.
That's awesome. And as someone who's also in industry now instead of grad school, I appreciate you representing for us. Okay, so we've talked a lot about like the decisions we have made or you guys have made to change your career path, maybe from what you envisioned when you first got the scholarship. But now I want to talk about maybe some external factors that cause you to have to change your mind without you really having too much control over it. So this is more of a question for a few specific people. So I guess I'll start with Sylvia. So have there been any unexpected twists or changes that you did not foresee that caused you to change your path, and how did you overcome those, or how did you deal with those?
Yeah, so I will say I haven't changed my path very much since the end of college, but what caused me to do my biggest shift, which was going from music to physics, was just kind of coming to terms with the fact that it's extremely difficult to, make a career as a professional musician. And like music is something that I still do. And it's, very easy to continue with this as a hobby and still at a very high level. Even now I play in a string quartet, I play in a community orchestra, like I had a fellowship to take lessons when I was in grad school. So it's really easy to keep doing this. Doing astrophysics as a hobby is not so easy, but not impossible. But yeah, I mean, I feel very fortunate that since then I've kind of, been able to stick to my path with not a huge amount of roadblocks along the way. I will say that the current funding situation in the US is probably going to be one of the biggest roadblocks I'll face in the near-term future of my career, but I have no special insight into how I'm going to manage to address that at this time.
We'll check back in with you in a few years about that one. Vaishnavi, do you have any insight on this one?
Unexpected twist. Well, it's not really I mean, I would rather answer a different question, but I could
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Artemis, do you have anything on this one?
Um, Honestly, no. I don't have anything that comes to mind.
Okay, no worries at all. Nithya or Matt, do you guys have anything? If not, I will move on to the next question.
I just wanted to add a quick thing about the whole funding situation
Okay.
because I finished my PhD back in December. I defended, thankfully, and I was on the hunt for postdocs. I had quite a few offers that were then rescinded in the very recent situation due to the government administration. So those things are so out of your control, right? In my head, I did all the right things. I defended. I had my interviews in person. I gave my lectures and all of that. Got the actual offer, and then even looked for apartments to move to a different city. And then in the last minute, the offers got rescinded. So that happened to me twice in the past 2 months. And so in those situations where it really is out of my control, the only thing I can say is that it's really important to make sure you have a couple of backup options, and which is again easier said than done. But especially in the current climate, if you do want to continue doing research, funding is going to be a big, one of the most, I guess, yeah, the biggest obstacle that you're going to face. So that's just something to keep in mind. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Very important right now. Matt, did you have anything to add?
I think it's in my piece. Yeah, I mean, like I think I went over all the unexpected things that happened to me. Part.
Awesome. Okay, so the next one is actually more for Nithya and Matt. So you guys both started in one field and made a transition to another focus area of like research or like industry. So you guys have kind of already touched on this, but could you elaborate a little bit more about like how did you decide it was time to explore a new area, and like how did you choose what new area to explore when you did decide that you wanted to make that shift?
All right, I can go ahead. Yeah, I mean, it was very challenging, but extremely worthwhile. So I would say broadly speaking, the shift for me was from math, like pure mathematics, to computing. I think a big mistake that I made was just sort of, I was not was not very humble about it. I sort of was under the impression that, oh, I can just use math to like figure out how the computers work. I should have from the beginning said like I'm going to do very basic stuff, learn my fundamentals, and you know, build from a very solid base. Because frankly, I did my master's after I'd done a few years of industry work because I felt like I had not taken the time to really learn the fundamentals, and I did. It took 2 years, but you know, I would say for anybody that wants to make that is considering making a transition of field, like be humble, it takes time. And you know, I think my motivations for that I've already laid out is basically I wanted to be honest with myself and the people around me, and you know, this is another thing that I wanted to say. I really like doing pure math, but eventually you have to realize like if you can't just do choose what you want to do with your life based off of what you like. Like you have to base it off of what other people want and need from you. And the fact of the matter is that I came to realize is that there isn't a lot of want and need for research in algebraic topology or whatever it said in my Goldwater article. So that was a big impetus for it for me. But yeah, I would have done a few things differently, but I'm still like given where I am now, I'm very happy with it.
So, Nithya?
Just to keep this brief, I mean, the main reason that I switched from neuroscience to biochemistry was because the research questions I was interested in were required me to learn biochemistry and sort of go into that field. So I think my transition was fully just guided by what am I actually interested in? What do I need to learn? What field do I need to go into to actually answer those questions? And that's the reason that I made that switch. And I think it's yes, like Matthew mentioned, it's very hard. It takes a long time. There's so many fundamentals that I didn't know that I had to learn. But at the end of the day, I think that makes us a better scientist. If you are a biochemist who also has a neuroscience background, you will be poised to answer some research questions that others might not be able to. So that's the reason that I switched.
So, thank you so much. Okay, so the next thing that I kind of want to talk about is what you kind of realize along the way. I know we've been kind of touching on this, but like where you are now, looking back at where you started, what advice might you give yourself to how you could have done things differently or approach these career changes in a different way? Or maybe even like what is something that you had wish you had known when you first received the scholarship to now? So for this one, we can start with Artemis.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. The first thing that I wish I would have known, I think kind of goes with what we've already been talking about and with all of these career changes. A lot of people don't like believe me when I tell them this, but when I first went to my academic mentors who had helped me with the Goldwater and with research and told them that I wanted to spend a summer and part of a school year doing an industry internship, I got a lot of pushback from them about it. And they were very, very insistent that this was going to like derail all of my grad school goals and make my application a lot less competitive. Said things like nobody takes grad school letter of recommendations from industry supervisors seriously. And I then this was coming from multiple people. So I had like a bit of a crisis when like right after I got the Goldwater when I was deciding what to do. And I think Matthew said this really well that like it's you're on this high and it's such an exciting thing and you might feel like people and your mentors might use that to kind of like funnel you into this academic world. And I'm in it now. I'm doing a PhD and I love it. I'm very happy. But take this time to like explore all of your options. I struggled with this so much and it caused me so much stress. And I even considered not taking a lot of the opportunities in industry and elsewhere that came to me. But I think, as I was saying earlier, this helped me decide what my goals are now and what I want to do after the PhD. So I really wish I knew that it's okay to explore other options and to learn new things and to gain a better network of mentors. And uh, no one is going to take you less seriously because you have a wider variety of experiences. Um, if anything, I think having these experiences outside of academia helped differentiate me in a lot of ways, um, to a lot of my peers. I still got into grad school. I ended up getting the NSF GRFP after as well, which is again an academic thing. So yeah, I just wish I knew that it should be your priority to just try as many different things as you can and not follow like a very distinct path, because I don't think it makes a difference in the end if you're passionate and if you care about what you're doing and if that shows in your work. So yeah, that would have alleviated me a lot of stress, and I might have even made some different decisions, honestly, looking back.
Yeah, that is a great piece of advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. Vaishnavi, do you want to go ahead and take this one?
Yeah, I love this question. I think reflecting back to before I got the Goldwater, I was subconsciously doing a lot of things to kind of prove something to myself or prove something to someone. Like to give some concrete examples, I at the time was majoring, like double majoring in computer science and molecular biology at MIT, which was incredibly challenging. And also even more challenging when I spent like 40 plus hours a week in lab on top of all of the classes and problem sets and everything. And I did that because I felt like doing just biology, which is what I was really passionate about, wasn't enough, or I wouldn't be like smart enough, or I wouldn't be good enough for MD PhD programs if I like just did biology. Another similar thing is when I got the Goldwater, like I was super exhilarated, obviously, as you all should be. And I kept seeing a lot of people do UK fellowships, etc., afterwards, or like Fulbright and all of that, which are all amazing programs for some people. But I think you need to do them for the right reasons. So after I did get the Goldwater and like had some more time to reflect, I kind of decided to stop doing things to like prove something to people or to convince myself that I was good enough. I instead geared my path to be focused on what I was passionate about and what would like truly help my ultimate career. So for me, that meant that I didn't want to spend time learning like advanced algorithms when truly I had like the ability to code already, and that's all I needed to answer the biological questions I was primarily interested in. So I switched to just biology, and I still got into like my dream MD PhD program. And in terms of like the UK fellowships, I considered this a lot, but I had talked to some people who, if if you didn't want to like gain a new skill set, or if there wasn't some specific lab in Europe or in the UK that you wanted to go to, a lot of people that I talked to had like some negative experiences where they felt like they weren't really able to get into something since it was just like a couple years, and then they were like back to square one to like looking for a lab for the PhD or whatever. So for me personally, since I had such a long path ahead of me, as we've talked about, and I was really excited to just like dedicate the next like 6 years or whatever to a question that I could just focus on for that time, I decided that the Goldwater was like enough clout for me and that I didn't want to do those things just to chase clout. So I think like whoever needs to hear this, like you are super accomplished by getting the Goldwater and you don't need to like prove anything else to anyone. Just like take this as like a feather in your cap to just move on and do things that are like genuinely interesting to you.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that like people tend to have these expectations of who you're supposed to be when they think like Goldwater scholars. So I think it's very important to make sure to stick with what your interests are and what you want to study and pursue as your career, because you'll be so much more successful and happy in life if you're doing what you want to do and not what other people want you to do. So that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Can I
Um,
add something on this
yes,
same
100%.
topic? I will say, in a similar vein, clearly you're all super accomplished and like you're big fishes at your current undergrad university. Don't get discouraged if in the next step it's hard when you first start out, right? So I did my undergrad at Penn State. Penn State is an excellent school. I'm super glad I, had no student loans, but it's not MIT, right? And so suddenly I start grad school at MIT and like it's hard. And it took me a while, you know, clearly we're all good at school, right? We know how to study. It took me a while to like adapt my skills and patterns that I had cultivated in undergrad to the rigors of grad school. And the same thing happened when I started my postdoc, right? Like all of a sudden you're being asked to do something different. You have to like have a whole independent research program. So like at every step, it's gonna be hard, but don't let that just like discourage you. You know, it's hard not to feel the pressure of like, oh, I won this like fancy national fellowship and I got into this fancy grad school and like my family and like all my teachers and mentors are like counting on me and expecting me to like achieve amazing things. Like you're still going to achieve amazing things. It's okay if like you're not coming out of the gate swinging or whatever the appropriate idiom is there. Like just persevere and as Vaishnavi said, like focus on the things that are most rewarding to you because that's what's going to help you get through when you like get a 65% on an E&M exam and you're reminded like, okay, well, I need to pass this class because I really care about, you know, studying black holes. So
That's very well said. Nityashree or Matthew, do you guys have anything you want to add to that before we move on?
Yeah, I will say something quickly. This is as far as something that I would have done differently. On the topic of UK fellowships, I did apply for these. You know, have you know, it's not a great story, but I was a finalist for the Rhodes, Marshall, and Gates, and I didn't get any of them, which means obviously, like if I could go back and do it, I wouldn't have applied to any of them because, and there's specific reasons for this. Because when you're doing these things, it's very important that you like make this image of yourself that you're, you know, whatever. I don't know, like uh, a Renaissance man, Renaissance woman, whatever. And that meant that in the time leading up to those applications, like the summer before, for example, I went to the University of Oxford and I did this project on machine learning and climate change, and it was there was nothing to it. Like I should have just grown up, spent my time studying the basics of computer science and not tried to do anything flashy. That honestly is one of my biggest regrets. Obviously, in high, like maybe if I had won one of those things, I would have been very happy that I did it. But the fact of the matter is, like, don't do not pursue some opportunity that will try to make you be dishonest with yourself and dishonest with other people, frankly. I think it's I would honestly think it's similar in some sense to what Vaishnavi said because like I think Vaishnavi was trying to pretend to be somebody that she wasn't, and I was trying to pretend to be somebody that I wasn't and wasn't being honest with myself. So that was a big mistake. Should have been more humble in that decision, but it's in the past.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. So I see that in the chat we already have some questions, so I'm going to go ahead and like get to those so that everybody who wants to ask a question has a chance. So I'm just going down the list of people who have said they have a question in the chat. For everybody else, if you do have a question, you can also send a message in the chat, or if you want to like raise your hand, I will call on you guys that way as well, whatever works best for you guys. And just so that you all know, we are recording this for the YouTube channel. So if you are not comfortable like unmuting and speaking your question out loud, you can feel free to just drop your question itself in the chat and we'll go ahead and answer that. And if your question is directed at somebody specific, please go ahead and mention that too so that they can answer that for you. So yeah, I see Britton has a question first if you want to go ahead.
Hey, yeah, thank you. So, this is kind of related to what Matthew said in his opening speech, and then something Artemis touched on the last time she spoke, which is this idea that kind of you don't have to, what I took it as is this idea that you don't have to do a PhD immediately, you know, that everyone in academia is successful there, and that's all we're exposed to. And I just wanted to add that it also feels like there's this big feeling as, you know, a junior in college that if you don't go do that now, and because you've won Goldwater, you're already doing this research, a PhD might be the right move for you. But there's still this feeling that if you don't go do it right after undergrad, that it might be too late, that you might like miss that opportunity, that there might not be a way to get back into that if you realize it's the right call. And I was wondering if anybody had any perspective on that.
Yeah, I'll actually say my wife took 5 years off after undergrad, and she's starting as a PhD student at Harvard in the fall. So like as an example, there's this definitely happens to people. Like it's honestly it seems kind of silly like if somebody says that, oh, you will never have a chance to do a PhD if you don't go right away. Like obviously not. And I would have actually, given my experiences, very highly recommend if you're questioning it at all, like give it a shot. Spend a year or two. You're not going to get knocked for it. I know very successful professors who took time off after they graduated.
Thank you. Okay, I see Isabel had a question.
Hi. Yeah, I had a question for Sylvia. So I'm also in astrophysics. I'm an undergrad and I'm studying supernova-driven turbulence at the moment. And I was just curious because I'm applying to grad school next year. And I was curious when you were choosing a PhD program, did you end up studying what you thought that you were going to coming out of undergrad? And when you were choosing your advisor, did you go more for, the quality of your relationship with that advisor or more for what you were specifically interested in, or was it kind of an equal combination of both for you?
Yeah, this is a great question. So in undergrad, most of my research was actually in a slightly different field, like subfield of astrophysics. But I had done two REUs on gravitational waves. So I knew that I liked it, but kind of in the back of my mind, I thought I wanted to be a theoretical cosmologist because it's fancy. It's like the beginning of the universe. And so I applied for grad programs that had like, it was like a mix of kind of both topics, like theoretical cosmology and general relativity, but also like more gravitational wave data analysis. Um, and when I did the visits, I very quickly realized that actually I did not want to be a theoretical cosmologist because I started talking to people who actually did this. And I was like, oh, no, I do not want to spend my time like writing, intractable equations into a Mathematica notebook. And so in the end, like that was super helpful in narrowing it down. And then I was left with like the places that had strong programs for gravitational wave data analysis. And then in that case, like I will say the advice that I give is that, really the most important thing in your decision for grad school should be like how you think you will get along with your advisor, because you're going to spend at least 5 years working really closely with that person, and they're going to be like your mentor throughout the entire rest of your career. And even if you don't get along with them, they're still going to be like lurking in the shadows behind you for the rest of your career. And so working with someone that, you get along well and you have the similar kinds of ways that you work and similar personalities, like that's really important. Also, I would say, you want to make sure that there is at least another person that you think you might want to work with at that university, because if for whatever reason it doesn't work out with like your first choice, either their funding falls through or you work with them for a year and actually you realize that, oh, the impression that I got of this person from 30 minutes of talking with them on Zoom or even in person is not the reality of the situation, then you are gonna have a really hard time like continuing in that program if there's not something else that you can see yourself doing at that university. So that's my best advice on this topic.
Thank you so much. That was really great.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so we have a question for Nithya in the chat. So, what was your inspiration behind studying at the University of Bristol for your PhD? Did you enjoy your experience and or face any major challenges?
Yeah, so the main reason that I chose to go to Bristol was because of the professor that I wanted to work with. So I knew that I wanted to do a PhD. I was really interested in this one particular protein modification, and the only person in the UK who studied that was at the University of Bristol. And despite all the other things that we talked about with UK fellowships, I also put my hat in the ring for quite a few of them. I was awarded the Marshall Scholarship, which is also the main reason that I decided to do my PhD in the UK. And also, it's faster to do a PhD in the UK. If that is something that you are thinking about and may not want to spend 5, 6 years, 7 years in some cases to do a PhD. Most PhD programs in the UK are 3 to 4 years. So I was able to complete mine in about 3.5 years. And so because there's no coursework, so you just kind of get to it, you do the research, and then you defend and you're out. So that was another reason I chose to do my PhD in the UK. I really enjoyed the experience. There were some cultural changes, of course, but also just how the system of science works. There's a little bit different when it comes to funding and fellowships and things like that. So that was a bit of a learning curve, but I overall really enjoyed it. And if anyone is interested in applying to the Marshall or the Rhodes and would like to discuss more about that, I'm always feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you so much, Nithya. Okay, we have another question in the chat. This is not directed towards anybody in particular, so whoever wants to take it can take it. But it's that I am currently exploring PhD programs. I found it challenging to pinpoint what kind of research is truly interesting to me. Could you share what makes your own research/work interesting or meaningful to you? What aspects of your work do you enjoy most, and how did you come to realize that this was the right path for you?
I can start answering this one, and I'll keep it brief, but I feel like maybe it depends on the field you're in, but you don't have to know for sure like what specific research you're interested in before you even apply, because most programs will have rotations. So as long as the PhD program that you're applying to has enough of a breadth of research options, I feel like it's not something you have to nail down right now. And of course, it might change. But to answer personally, I feel like I really reflected on what about my undergraduate research was interesting to me. Like it wasn't the topic, it wasn't like the form of cell death that I was studying. It was like the types of questions I was able to ask, like, why is that happening in the cell? And I found in my coursework and other settings as well, like those were consistently the types of questions that I was asking myself. So I feel like I would recommend whenever you go to a talk, like notice what kinds of questions you're coming up with, and maybe that could sort of guide your path. And I'll also say that personally, I like doing wet lab work because as opposed to like a lot of computational work where you're limited by the data that's out there, I get to decide like what question I want to ask. I get to decide exactly how I'm going to design the experiment to do it. And then I get to analyze the data, and that sometimes also involves computational aspects. And when I get a large data set, like I can generate a lot of data that way too. But for me, purely computational research in biology just didn't provide like the freedom that I wanted to answer the kinds of mechanistic questions I was interested in.
Awesome answer. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to that?
I'll just add that undergrad is a great time to explore. You know, the stakes will never be lower. So try all the crazy areas of research that you think you might be remotely interested in. I hate that we're going to this model where like everyone needs a first author paper to get into grad school. That is so not the point of undergrad. Like the point of this time is to figure out what you're interested in. And I will say that like you don't need to find like the one true field that is like your greatest passion, right? Like you just need to find something that you enjoy and you can see yourself doing for 8 hours a day for at least 5 years, right? So like just because you've decided to study one thing and you didn't get to try all the other things doesn't mean that like you should regret this decision. Like it's not the end of the world as long as you find something that you like and you don't hate the prospect of going into a lab and doing this for at least the duration of a PhD. Like don't try to be more exhaustive than that in your quest for like your ultimate area of research.
Thanks, Sylvia. Matt, I saw you unmuted for a second. Did you still have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'll just add quickly, like what I'm doing, I wouldn't classify it as research, but it's work. And the main reason that I find it meaningful is because at my job, I'm working to automate things that in past jobs I have found very painful. And like that's awesome. Like being able to do something that you know that you have experienced, like this will make people's lives better. That's the ideal situation. Like you can do that if you can find but it's really, really hard. Like I don't think I got very lucky in this situation. So if you can find a research topic that you feel does that for you, awesome. Probably not going to be in math, but yeah, you can probably that's kind of the gold standard in my opinion.
Awesome. Thank you, Matthew. Okay, we have another question in the chat. So, for those with experience in industry, what skills did you feel you lacked most spending all your time in academia? Given the climate of research funding, I feel it might be important to prepare for a plan B, coming from someone in computational astro currently.
Cool. I guess I can say something quick here. Yeah, I would say on the spectrum of like pure theoretical work to like pure computational work, I always find myself needing to know more and more about like how computers work, like at a fundamental level, really. Which it's very fun, very interesting. So like classes that I wish I had taken early on are like operating systems, networking, cloud computing. This is in the world of software engineering, so like this is a very specific answer. But honestly, like when I was a trader at one point, it's not engineering, and like I really wish I had known a lot more about this. And frankly, software engineering is weird right now. The job market is strange, I think largely because of AI. So take that with a huge grain of salt, but personally, that's what I wish I had done.
Thank you, Matt. Is there anybody else that wants to add to that?
I think that so I did an internship during undergrad in industry and then right after my undergrad in the summer. But I think that the number one, like, small things that I really liked from academia were like a sense of how to communicate your work to people that are there to help you that are not experts in what you're doing. I had spoken at conferences in undergrad. I knew the whole premise of like present this to a lay audience versus presenting it to people in your lab or in your field. But I got to a point in industry where I had to communicate it to collaborators, to people from the companies that were making the equipment that we were using, to other companies that were trying to fund us, and then to people from a startup that we were acquiring. So all these people were scientists, but with different backgrounds, and we were communicating for different purposes. So for the first time, I wasn't trying to just sell my research, which is what you do at conferences. I was trying to teach people how to do something, um, get information that I needed. So learning how to tailor my science to a bunch of different things, I think is the number one skill that I learned in industry. Because you don't just have to be a salesman, you have to be able to collaborate with people from different backgrounds and for different purposes. And I think that I'm going to forever be grateful for that. It helped me with so many things. I use a lot of the skills now for grant writing. I use them for different fellowships applications. So I think that scientific communication is something that I didn't realize how much I was lacking until I went to industry.
That's awesome. Thank you, Artemis. Okay, so we only have a couple of minutes left, so I just want to give the floor to all of our panelists. Is there anything that you guys haven't had a chance to share that you guys want to share right now?
I think
Okay.
that's
Oh,
enough time yapping, but I said everything I want to say.
awesome. All right.
Thank
Thank
you all
you
for the great
guys.
questions.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. And thank you to everybody who attended and for asking amazing questions. Thank you to our panelists for taking the time out of their busy schedules to come share their advice with all of you. Hopefully, all of our new scholars will one day be sitting where you guys are right now. So, this is great. If you guys have any other ideas for future webinars you want to see or any other GSC events, feel free to message any of the chairs in Slack. We always look forward to those. But otherwise, I'll stay on the call in case anybody has anything else they want to discuss. But thank you guys so much for coming. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you.
everyone. Thank
Thank you.
you and
Thank
congrats.
you.